Hi, everybody. As you know, we are still celebrating the election of Kamala Harris as America's first Black female deputy president of the United States of America. And it is, I think we don't realize what a tough race it was for her and for us. And I think sometimes we take advantage of or we take lightly the issue of our identity. One of the hurdles that she had to battle was a battle for her blackness. There were circles and many and very loud circles that claimed that Kamala Harris was not and didn't qualify to be African or to be Black. And one of the most ridiculous things that was said is that she didn't come directly for the ship that worked in the plantation. So she's not a plantation slave, and therefore she doesn't qualify to be Black. Um, I don't even want to dignify that, but I really, every day I find racism to be more and more ridiculous, more and more unreasonable, because the fact that she was not a plantation slave does not make her less of a slave than anybody else. The fact that apartheid was not slavery does not make it less slavery or less African than any other form of slavery. The fact that it wasn't qualified and classified as slavery, that is why it was called apartheid, because it had to be masked away from the concept of slavery, and that is why it was legalized, so that it could go past the Bill of Human Rights, and it could go past the scrutiny of the countries and the worlds that had decided to abolish slavery. Number two, there's so many, police in America, nations that have appointed themselves as identity police. Who gives who the right to say that so and so can be Black and so can be white? I find that the most insulting thing to us as a human race, because really, if you think about it, all along, people have spent so much of their time proving people to not be white enough so that they don't qualify for the white privileges. And then suddenly, because this woman has worked so hard to open the door for blackness to enter, the doors that they've been entering and shutting for us, suddenly now blackness is a privilege. Being a former slave's descendants is suddenly a privilege, that you have to prove yourself that you are Black enough. And this one drop policy, so there's this policy that they used to have in America to say that, and I think it's still applicable, though silently, to say that if they trace you enough, even if they can trace you up to 25 great ancestors, if just one of them happens to be Black, then you are disqualified from being white. I think really at some point somebody really needs to tell these people to they can keep their whiteness, because the issue is not whiteness, the issue is the human being. Let them keep their skin, but can they just leave the humanity alone? Because the reason why nobody can accept suddenly that Kamala Harris is Black is because she has displayed that not all Black people are stupid, not all Black people are savage, not all Black people are incompetent, not all Black people are stupid. And they are saying the only reason she's risen up to where she's risen is because she's white. So I also need to remind those who are saying that because she was of Jamaican descent, Jamaicans are not African enough. Listen, the people that are in Jamaica, the Black people that are in Jamaica, they were shipped from Africa to Jamaica as slaves. So they're as African as any other African, even if they can be in the last corner or quarter of the world, whether they are in China, whether they're in Iceland, whether they are in with the Eskimos. If they never got there voluntarily, and they were forced there, then they are former slaves, number one, former slave children, number one. Number two, they are descendant from Africa, and that does not only make them Black, it also makes them pure Africans. And the fact that they can call themselves African American, African Jamaican, African Chinese, African Australian, African this or that does not take away their Africanness from them. And on that note, I'd really like to say, hands off Kamala Harris's identity. And it's so sad that every time, blackness excels, it is sold as white. The Egyptian identity is now being sold as white. The Hebrew Israelites identity is now being sold as white. The Lembas now, they are being sold as white. Why is it every time there's greatness around Africanness and around blackness, it has to be transformed to become white? This has to stop. And we have to fight for our identity, because when the enemy comes for us, he doesn't only come for us politically, economically. He takes up until he has taken your tradition, taken your culture, and finally stripped you of your identity. So we have to stop this complacency of ours. We have to celebrate Kamala Harris. We have to make sure that she's celebrated as a Black African woman, so that blackness can regain its strength, because all the greatness of blackness has been abolished in the history books. All our accomplishments pre-colonization have been wiped off, as if we've always been a useless bunch of humanity. And that is not true. And it starts with us acknowledging people like Kamala Harris, because you never know, 20 years down the line, there's going to be a lie. Somebody's going to come up with a lie and say Kamala Harris was a white woman. Mark this space.